Welcome back to the Nonprofit Spotlight. I am your host, Mike Gutzler, and today I'm really excited to have with us Dr. Amber Burton, who is the director of the Wolf Trap Animal Rescue. Dr. Burton, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Mr. Mike, happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. If you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself and how the organization came into existence.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Oklahoma. I'm kind of a transplant here. But I went to vet school at Oklahoma State. I grew up with horses on a big horse farm in Oklahoma. I went to vet school there. And when I was there, I kind of just really thrived in surgery, even though it was probably the scariest thing that I didn't want to go to vet school for. Once I got in there and learned it, I just really enjoyed it. So I kind of focused in on that and debated and weighed on whether after vet school I wanted to do like an internship that specialized in surgery and become a specialized surgeon with like orthopedics or things like that, or if I kind of wanted to go a different route. And right around that time, and that was in 2010, and right around that time, shelter medicine became a very large up and coming area of focus for veterinarians, and it was brand new. There was like two residencies in the country, and Oklahoma State had decided that year that they were going to offer a shelter medicine internship. And that was where you would spend 6 months rotating at the hospital, doing surgery, helping with junior surgery programs, and like helping teach the younger generation of students like soft tissue surgery, spay and neuter. And then you would spend the other 6 months being the veterinarian at a very large animal shelter in the city of Tulsa Welfare, which took in about 12,000 animals a year. So any given day, there was a lot of animals in that shelter, at least 300 or more animals housed in that shelter as a big municipal shelter. But the enticing part about that program was that the program allowed every animal that was in that animal shelter had to have surgery and be spay and neutered before it could be adopted. So you had the opportunity to do up to 10,000 surgeries potentially in that year for every animal that came in that needed to go out, right? In theory. So for me, that was a huge opportunity, even if I only got half of that, spending 6 months there at a time. I mean, that's unbelievable experience for a new graduate to be able to have primary case responsibility and get that surgery experience. So I was like, well, you know what, if I do this, then that'll tell me, because no matter what, if you ever want to do a surgery internship, like most of the path to be a boarded surgeon in veterinary medicine is once you go to four years of undergrad, 4 years of vet school, then you do a rotating internship, and then you do a specialized surgical internship, and then another 3-year residency. So I was just like, okay, well, if this will count as a rotating internship, then I'll be light years ahead of everybody else in other rotating internship programs before they start their surgical internship. So that was my thought process going into it. So I was like, okay, well, I'll do surgery, and that's what I'll focus on. So I got offered the internship and took it. So I was one of the very first shelter medicine interns at Oklahoma State. And I rotated at the shelter first, which was a good thing and a bad thing. A good thing is it gave me a lot of experience right out the gate. But my kind of like what I say is like my first impact moment was when I showed up for surgery that first day, and I, meet the Dr. Pincus, who's the mentor and the other veterinarian on staff. I was scrubbing in for surgery, and they were like, well, hold on, Dr. Burton, before we start surgery, every day we're going to do shelter rounds on all 300 animals in the shelter, and here's the list of them. And they gave me a red marker, and they said, we want you to highlight every animal in red to go on the euthanasia list for the end of the day, and we need at least 30 dogs and 30 cats to make room for the ones coming in tomorrow.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So that was my job every day for 6 months of that internship program while I was there at the shelter before I could even start surgery. So yes, did I get incredible experience out of that? absolutely, when it came to surgery, I probably left that internship with almost 6,000 surgeries under my belt in a year. But it definitely highlighted the importance of and the reality of animal shelters and medicine, and the really, really lack of knowledge that we have, and resources for these big shelters. And part of that is veterinarians. And so and funding too as well. So I ended up doing that internship, and through that internship, I got recruited, because I spent some time at Mississippi State as well as University of Florida teaching part of their surgery program. And I got recruited by Dr. Bushby from the Mississippi State program to come and do his for one of their very first shelter medicine residencies. So that was a little bit of a different residency in the sense of like some of the other shelter medicine programs that were being started were very much focused on research and going into shelters and learning ways of how to make shelters better and population management. Whereas this residency with Dr. Bushby, he was a board certified surgeon. He was one of the fastest surgeons in the world. And he perfected the spay and neuter technique to where like he does them so incredibly fast. If you blink, he's already done, right? So I saw him do surgery, and that was it for me. I was like, if I can do surgery even half as good as you can, then I'm all in, by the time I finished my residency. So I went there, and yeah, I mean, so in that residency program, we would take junior and senior veterinary students all across the state of Mississippi, and we would spay and neuter all the animals at all the local shelters for free, for no charge. We would pull up and we would spay and neuter them all, and that was our day. So we spent a lot of time in those shelters, but those shelters had even less resources than the one I did my internship with at, and Tulsa, Oklahoma. So, some of these shelters are just barns, with fans, and they're chicken coops, basically housing puppies. Like, it was really crazy. And I mean, and those shelters were euthanizing 30, 40, 50 puppies a day sometimes, and they still do. So when I was doing my residency, I worked very, very closely with Dr. Bushby for 2 years. And then in my second year, he unfortunately got diagnosed with cancer. So I kind of took over the residency program in a sense, unfortunately. So I had to get really good at teaching and flying solo on my own pretty quickly. But by the end of the residency, like, I was just as fast as he was. So it was the best program that I could have ever done. So I still have a very big passion for teaching, and still do today. And when I kind of got burnt out by the end of my residency of just going to all these shelters, spaying and neutering them all, coming back a week later, finding out they were all put down. It's just, it can be a lot. And so, and then one of the day, obviously you don't make hardly any money in residencies, surviving on 18,000 a year. And I went to moonlight for one of the shelters. So moonlighting is what we call like working kind of like off the grid under the table for other organizations to try to make some money on the side. And I would do that for the animal shelters, usually like behavior consults, giving rabies vaccines, temperament testing, making sure animals are safe. And my day when I got asked to do the work for this one shelter, I showed up and my job was to euthanize 127 puppies and kittens in one day. So yeah, after that, that's kind of when I was like, all right, I'm compassion fatigued out. I am a really good surgeon, and I just, like, even though I love shelter medicine, like, I just can't be in this field right now for my mental health. Like, it's too much. So I finished my residency. I did that from 2011, 2015. And then I got offered a position for another big animal rescue organization out here in Southern Maryland. And I was offered like this big director position, head of surgery, yada, yada, yada. And it was more money than I could ever dream of in my life, which was a little suspicious at the time, but I'm like, whatever. Like, I'm really great, you know, like, and so, you know, surely I'm worth it, you know, and so I went out there and it was just a gimmick to just, I mean, they knew I was the fastest in the country and they knew that they could use and abuse me and they could work me to the ground and I could pump out 150 surgeries a day and they make, you know, $30,000-$40,000 a day for their program.
Hmm.
And but their program like was very inhumane. Every time I'd write protocols or try to change things or make their shelter better, I found my protocols in the trash. I was constantly being undermined and they didn't want to spend the money on the medication that actually works. And so I kind of got really fed up with it,
Hmm.
and frustrated even more because now I'm like, okay, like now I can't even be a surgeon and help in the same ways that I want without somebody just like not following my recommended protocols. And so but I still had a lot of really close contact with the shelter managers and a lot of the volunteers that I worked with in Mississippi during my residency. And they're all like, can you help us? Can we send animals to your rescue that you're working at? And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, don't even bother. Like, they'll come here and they'll get sick and die. Like, to be honest, like, don't even, like, they'd be better off down there, to be honest, and save them a stressful transport. So I kind of just kept complaining about it to one of my friends that I worked with, and he was just volunteering at the shelter at the time, and then had gotten hired and was kind of my vet assistant, even though he had no idea. He just was smart and he listened to what I taught him, and so I was like, okay, great, you have a brain, you're coming and working in surgery with me. And so he kept tired of me hearing me complain about everything. And he was like, well, look, if they can do it and they don't know what they're doing and they're bad at it and you know what you're doing, and he was like, why don't you just do it? And I was like, and he was like, plus, and while I was at Mississippi State, I got my MBA as well during my residency. So he was like, if there's anyone that should be doing it, you should be doing it. And I was like, no way. Like, every veterinarian's nightmare would be to run an animal rescue organization because of our experiences with them, right? Is that
Yeah.
they don't follow our protocols, they don't listen to our medical recommendations, they want to do the cheaper protocol instead of the right protocol. And they're very, you know, they just don't want to work around. They have a lot of prohibitive measures that they take and that may not be ethical. And so I was like, oh, I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And then finally he was just like, either do it or shut up because I don't want to hear you complain about it anymore. So I called one of my contacts down in Mississippi, one of the shelters, and I was like, hey, like, do you have any puppies that you're like about to euthanize? Or like, if we do this, what do you think? And they were like, oh my gosh, yes, like, we've got 30 right now. Just come and get them, please. Take them.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, just and actually my friend that I worked with at the time is now one of my best friends, and he's currently the CFO of Wolf Trap Animal Rescue, and has been with me. He came with me because I was like, look, if you're telling me I need to do this, then you're coming with me.
That's great.
And so yeah, we rented a van. We drove 14 hours to Mississippi. I lived across from Wolf Trap park at the time, so I just called it Wolf Trap Animal Rescue to tie people to a location and a place, and kind of like marketing 101, and come up with a name that evokes good emotion and ties people to a geographical location. And so yeah, we drove 14 hours to Mississippi, didn't have a clue what we were doing. We picked up 30 puppies. We drove another hour to my friend's vet clinic. We spay neutered them all and drove them all back as they're waking up from anesthesia, as I'm like emailing like mom groups and things on Facebook and being like, will anybody take a puppy? We need help. Like, this is what we're doing. Like, we're trying to start this. We're saving these puppies, da da da. And by the time we got back, 14 hours, we pulled up into my garage of the townhouse I was renting at the time. We like processed all these puppies, made sure they had flea and tick control, vaccines. We did all this stuff in my garage. I'm just like, oh my gosh, in a townhouse in Vienna. But like, I'm from Mississippi, so I don't care. That's a normal thing. It's not a normal thing here in Northern Virginia to have your neighbor pull up with 30 puppies in their garage. I can promise you. So I didn't think twice about it, but boy, my neighbors sure did. And so we processed them. We loaded them all up in the van. I had 30 people that said they would take puppies, so I felt okay about it. they were all supposed to meet us at the PetSmart in Springfield and Alexandria. And we drove to all the puppies to Alexandria Springfield PetSmart, and I pulled up, and what I say was like one of my biggest impact moment of my life, and that was when we pulled up into that parking lot, and there was over 200 people waiting outside PetSmart that just wanted to help
Oh
and
my gosh.
rescue a puppy. And I was like, oh no. I was like, because like that means like we could actually do this. And like I remember looking at Jesse and being like, yeah, okay, like we can do this. Like we've been up for 50 hours straight and we get this. And it took off from there. And we've just grown more and more every year. And our primary focus is just being veterinary led and focusing on the health of the animals, focusing on prioritizing the health and wellness of the animals over like the cost. And so it's like, yeah, okay, we're a more expensive rescue organization to adopt from. I get that, but all of our animals are spay and neutered. They've got tiny incision sites that you don't have to deal with spay and neuter recovery or cover that cost later on. And they've had the top of the line veterinary products. And they've had everything. They've had fecals. They've been dewormed. They've, we make sure they don't have intestinal parasites. They have, heartworm prevention, flea and tick control. They've been in foster care for 3 weeks, which I feel is a mandatory quarantine because that is like the common timeline for incubation of infectious or life-threatening diseases is 14 days. So if you can screen them for those 14 days and you know that they're healthy, then you can schedule them for surgery and get them adopted at the end of those 3 weeks. And you know that pet parent is adopting the healthiest pet possible with little to zero risk of infectious disease exposure. So that's what we pride ourselves on, and that's what we focus on. And now we've grown to I do, like I said, I love teaching, and so now we partner with Columbia Pike Animal Hospital here in Annandale, and they have a rotating internship. They take like 6 interns a year, like a general rotating. And then we also do a rotating internship with Wolf Trap as like a hybrid program. So we have an intern that is here like year round, like they do Wolf Trap Animal Rescue, but then they spend 6 months over at Columbia Pike. And then all of their rotating interns also come and spend 4 weeks working with me, where they get about 200 surgeries under their belt, which is huge for a new grad veterinarian to get that experience coming straight out nowadays. Before, back in the day, 15 years ago, it was easy to get that because, there wasn't as much liability and people didn't care so much if you were spaying and neutering own pets, like you just had that experience so much more in school. Whereas now, with limitations and restrictions on what you can practice on animals, a lot of veterinarians coming out of school nowadays have only done half a spay, if that. Maybe they shared it. And some of them haven't even done them on live animals. They've only done them on cadavers. So the experience there is really key. So we have a lot of people that come from all over the country for these internship programs, just specifically because they want the 4-week rotation with me over here at Wolf Trap. So that's been really fun. And it's been great. But
yeah,
that's our story.
That's an incredible story. Fantastic. So about how many animals kind of go through the practice or go through the nonprofit in let's say, a given month or so?
Yeah, so we do probably 2 to 3 transports a month. We have a full-time transport coordinator on the ground in Mississippi, who is the same one that I got those 30 puppies with in the very first get-go. And she was one of the volunteers helping load them up on the van, on that transport, which is really fun. And she was only 19 years old, I think, at that time. So it's fun. But so basically how the process works is we used to pull straight from animal shelters. And that was really, really tough at the time because so many of the animals were already exposed to deadly viruses like parvovirus or kennel cough or things like that are really, really life-threatening for a puppy. So when they're already in the shelter, they're exposed to that. By the time we pull them, they go on a 14-hour transport back up here to us. We'd have at least 15 to 25% of that transport would break with parvo. Now, which seems really terrible, but at the same time, I'm a vet, and up here it would cost $10,000 a puppy to treat if you took them to another hospital to have it done. So any other rescue organization would probably go bankrupt if they tried to do what we do at the volume that we do, if they are actually using veterinarians and doing it appropriately. But fortunately, I know how to treat parvo. I can do it in my sleep. I have my own tailored protocol that's very cost effective, but is standard for care of what we use in shelters and shelter medicine all across the country. So, yeah, I mean, so we can just treat it very cost effectively for around $400 a puppy, depending on how long their treatment is. But that's the biggest difference, right? Like, so I can manage the parvo that other rescue organizations probably couldn't and shouldn't be doing unless they had veterinarians on staff.
Yeah.
But what's different now is because we've created such a name for ourselves in Mississippi, and our transport coordinator has done such a great job with the community, that now the animal shelters, they don't even take the puppies anymore. Like when people try to drop 20 or 30 puppies off, they just say, no, here's a card, call Wolf Trap. Like, call Wolf Trap Animal Rescue, and our team down there will supply them with food, pee pads, anything and everything that they could possibly need to keep those puppies safe and where they are until they come up on transport with us.
Nice.
So now the health and the quality of the animals and the pets that we get now is drastically different, because they're not going into the shelters in the first place, and they're not overwhelming the shelters and taking all their resources. And because those puppies aren't coming into the shelter, now they're not euthanizing animals exactly 3 days later, or euthanizing animals that have been there for 5 days that haven't even gotten a chance to get adopted. So they're able to spend more time on the less adoptable dogs and not focus on the most susceptible, naive population of dogs, which are the puppies, that take the most work. So they just redirect them to our transport coordinator, Katie, and she just has her master list and just gets everybody scheduled for transport. And just however long these Good Samaritans can hold on to these animals is how we kind of prioritize getting them up here.
Yeah. So that you get them up here, and you mentioned like the 21-day quarantine, which is a little bit longer than the average, which is great. That gives you that extra time to be with the animals. And then, so where does it go from there? Like, do you have foster? Do you have like foster parents, or is it just straight to adoption?
Our program would not be. We wouldn't be able to do what we do unless we had fosters. So the fosters are like our key element for our program, because we only pull as many puppies the day before transport as we have fosters for. So some people may be watching this episode have maybe seen like a post in their social media channels or something from us that says, emergency fosters needed. Here are pictures of these puppies. Please sign up if you can, or call us if you can foster a puppy for just 3 weeks before we get them, because a lot of them do get adopted by the end of the 3 weeks, and it is just a 3-week commitment. So I pay for that advertising, and that used to be, we used to pay $100 in the Facebook algorithms. I get 100 people signed up. Now I have to pay almost $1,000 every transport to get 20 people signed up.
Wow.
So on average, I probably spend about $3,000 in advertising for every transport that we need fosters for. We have a lot of returning fosters, but you can't expect people to be able to foster over and over and over again. A lot of people really are recurring fosters. They do it like 3 or 4 times a year, right?
Yeah.
So it's not something where you have the same people over and over again, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. And like, we love new fosters, and we want more people involved, and that's kind of how we do it. To me, it's a very small price to pay in the long run, if that means that I get to rescue 10 more puppies because I get 10 more fosters by spending an extra $1,000.
Yeah.
So my 2 adoption fees will cover saving the other 8. You know what I mean? So it's kind of business. side of that is, for me, it's worth it. Whereas some other rescue organizations would probably be like, oh my gosh, we can't afford to spend that in marketing. We're just going to work with what we have. And it's like, well, no, like we can't, because you can work with what you have. You just have to be able to you have to be willing to spend it to be able to gain it. So I
Yeah.
just run our entire program just very much like a business. Like, yes, we all love animals, we all care about animals, but we have to be very business mindset and savvy if you want to be successful and continue to grow. And that's like my biggest passion. And what I love about this organization is like we're creating a model for other rescue organizations to follow and creating a career path for other veterinarians that have the passion and the love for shelter medicine and rescue like I do. It gives them a very clear career path and like a wheel to kind of follow rather than reinvent. So I'm very proud of that, very happy with that.
So then, how does one go about actually adopting a
Mhm.
puppy or a cat from your organization?
Yeah, I mean, well, fostering is the best way because then you get priority to adopt. So that's the hook right there that we're always like, look, if you are on the fence about adopting, or you don't know if a puppy's going to work with your lifestyle, or you're not sure how it's going to go with your kids, like don't make the spontaneous decision to just bring a puppy home, right? Like even though you've really thought about it, every puppy's different. So we have a lot of people that foster with us until they find the perfect puppy.
Hmm.
And they're like, we want a puppy, but we want to make sure it's the best puppy for our family. So they'll foster with us 3 or 4 times until they find that perfect one, and they know it immediately. They're like, this is the one. I don't know how they know it, but they just do. So I always say the best way if you're interested in adopting is to foster, because then you know for sure it's a really good fit. But if you just not built for fostering, you don't want to go through that, then you can just go to the website. You can view all of our available pets online that are available for adoption. And then you just submit an adoption application, and then you can request a meet and greet with any of the animals that are listed for adoption. So you can meet them in person and you can interact with them and see how they fit. But the cool thing about our program is that we leave the family that they pick up to the foster.
Hmm.
So I personally believe that nobody behind a desk or working in administration can say who's going to be the best home for an animal that they're not even the ones being the primary caregiver of, right? Like the biggest advocate for our foster puppies are going to be their fosters. They're the ones that in and out with them every day, feeding them, taking care of them, knowing their personality, knowing their wants, knowing their needs. Like our fosters are so good at vetting and screening on their own of like if somebody goes to meet into a meet and greet and our foster might meet 2 or 3 families, they say, my foster puppy completely clicked with this family. It was instant, it was immediate. This is where the puppy needs to go. Like, because they know the puppy's behavior and the puppy chooses them sometimes. And that's just sometimes how it works out. So that's, you can go through the meet and greet process and do it that way. We do have on site adoption events that are on our website that are listed as well. We have one on the 8th. So we do have events there as well, but we don't bring all the puppies. That would be a little much to handle. We used to do that pre-COVID, but we don't anymore, thank goodness. But we'll have probably like 10 to 15 puppies that maybe have been in our system a little bit longer that we need to spotlight and feature a little more heavily. Those will be at the adoption events.
Got it. Okay. So I'm assuming that running a animal rescue is not only time and energy, but an incredible amount of resources. And you can tell from just talking to you how much of you think of it as a business. But if there's listeners out there that want to support you all and the work
Yeah.
that you're doing, do you also take donations? Do you take
Yep.
donations of items? I'm assuming you take monetary donations. How
Yeah,
does that all that work?
we take monetary donations always, but we take food donations. We have an Amazon wish list listed on our website, which is really helpful. It's like crates. It's a lot of things people don't think about that we could really use is if like they have connections with car dealerships or any of those places. Like we our transport vans, like we're putting thousands and thousands of miles on back and forth. And not only do we have 2 up here, but we have 2 down in Mississippi that go and run almost every weekend. So it's, we go through cargo vans like crazy, and those things are not cheap. They're like 50 grand a pop. So you're talking $200,000 of vehicles alone that maybe have a shelf life of 3 to 4 years tops before they have over 250,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
So those types of things, like those are really, really big things that those are probably like the biggest monetary things that really are a toll. And then if anybody knows Facebook and can get us unlimited paid advertising, like then, man, that's hitting the gold mine for us too. Cause I mean, we probably spend about 150,000 a year just in advertising
Wow.
on Facebook to get our fosters. But if we didn't have our fosters, then we wouldn't even have our program, and we wouldn't have puppies, and we wouldn't be able to rescue any of them. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of it's a huge expense, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, you got to do what you got to do. Otherwise, and that's why I say when people look at our adoption fees and compare them to other organizations, like those are the things you have to take into consideration. Like we have full-time vets on staff. Like I have an intern, myself, licensed vet technician. We have a full veterinary hospital that's open. We see appointments all day, every day. We're in surgery all day, every day. So what people think is what other rescue organizations do in comparison to kind of what we do is just very, very different.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So, thinking about the next steps for Wolf Trap, and obviously you have a huge budget, a huge responsibility. You're putting out a ton of puppies and animals and cats and whatnot out into the community, which is fantastic. But what are your goals? Or like, where do you hope to go next? Or do you have plans to expand? Or
yeah. So we do have plans to expand. So obviously, I built kind of like my dream hospital here in this leasehold space, kind of in Merrifield. But we were supposed to have 5 year with a 5 year option. We did just recently find out that the landlord is selling the building. Obviously, we're here in Mosaic District, Avalon area, like Avalon's buying this building and turning it into an apartment complex. So we are going to have to relocate in 4 years. So in 2 years, we're really gonna starting this now, we're really going to be ramping up operations because we need at least $2 million in addition in our funds to be able to even qualify for a loan to buy, because it doesn't make sense for our organization to lease a space and go through and do a whole tenant build out. So where once again we might get in another situation with this where like we're in an optional renewal and like now we've got to move again, and it's just like to build out this hospital was over $750,000. Like I'm not I'm not doing that again in a lease. So it's like if we're gonna do that like long term, like I'm not going anywhere for another 20 plus years. I'm still young. So for me it's we have to think long term in like 20 years from now. And so my goal here is stay in the Fairfax area, wherever that may be, and find a place that has at least 4,000 to 5,000 square feet that we can basically rebuild our entire blueprint of our hospital that we currently have and just now start over. Kind of start over, but not, because we're going to be, if we want to get to where I want to get by this summer, my plan is to double our transport. So not double the number of intakes that we're doing, but double the number of animals. So 2 vans coming up with puppies every weekend or every other weekend. And instead of adopting out 150 puppies a month, we're doing 300 a month. Because if we want to have to, if we need that amount of revenue, like in the bank, in our savings account with our current operational budget, like it's not going to happen. And so I've already met with tons of, I'm very close relationships with Old Dominion National Bank. I just love them. All those guys over there, they've all adopted from us. So I have a lot of networks. So like I've met with their commercial side, and they're just like, look, like this is what you guys have to have if you want to be able to afford something in Fairfax. So it's like, for me, I'm like, okay, well, this is how we have to get there. And we just have to double our revenue and save more lives, which is great. That's a great problem to have, but it takes a lot more work. And like you said, like now, instead of having 2 vans, we have to have 4 vans, and those are now going to be, we're having 4 vans running every weekend instead of, 2 vans. So it's just like, that's where we have to grow to get to. But in 2 years, I want to have found a new location and home for Wolf Trap. And then by the time my lease is up entirely in 4 years, that gives me enough time to build out the space, have it operational and running. So like it's a very smooth transition. And if I
Yeah.
like break my lease early, then great. But like I want to make sure we have enough breathing room that we're still continuing operations, even, you know, well before my lease is up here at this location.
Yeah. Is that going to require you to have more staff too?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm working on that right now as we speak. So, but like you said, like everything comes with like a cost, right? Like, yes, I have more staff, but the primary thing that I'm doing right now, well, was I'm really going into the AI space right now. So we're having AI artificial bots that are I can create with prompts to basically replicate my employees and know exactly how to communicate, exactly how we communicate with based on prompts, our manuals, everything we talk about. So, say if a foster has a question at 2 o'clock in the morning, they can call John, who's the assistant foster coordinator, and speak to John, who is just a bot. But I mean, I talked to one of them and I didn't even know it was a bot for the first 10 minutes of the conversation. But that is like they talk to John. It's like, oh, my puppy's having diarrhea. What do I do? And John will give advice exactly like we give for the first 24, 48 hours of monitoring. And then we'll say if it persists or has any problems, we can transfer you to Dr. Burton or email Dr. Burton, and like those are things that like are really, really taxing on an employee, or I would need multiple employees to manage over 400 animals and foster care with those questions. But if I have a bot that can handle those questions 24/7, every day, all day, every day, then we're golden. The only
Yeah.
thing I'm going to have to manage. So we're building all that out right now. So hoping to have that launched in June. So, but that takes a lot of like prompt creation,
Of
protocols.
course.
So we're doing that. And then starting in June, my intern, we're hoping she's going to stay on with us as staff. So she will be another surgeon I'm kind of creating as a mini version of myself. And so she'll be able to do all the additional animals that we are now taking on for surgery caseload, right? So I can continue teaching, doing the same volume that we're doing now, but now she can take on all the additional volume and extra surgeries that we're doing a month very easily, no problem. So
Yeah.
I think by incorporating that and embracing this direction that we're going with AI in the future, I think it's going to be huge for us. So that was a one-time expense of $5,000, and then it's $500 a month. So for me, I'm like, okay, well, that's going to take the place of 3 or 4 employees, as well as I'm not paying payroll taxes, I'm not paying health insurance or benefits. I'm like, this is huge for me as
Yeah.
far as for expenses. So like, I mean, I'm open to everything, and like if you're not ahead of the game, you're behind. And so for me, this is just business, and it's a business that I love and I'm very passionate about. But at the end of the day, we have to be, if you're not ahead of the game, you're behind. So that's the direction that we're going. So a lot of unforeseen expenses, but I'm also doing everything in my power to minimize those expenses as much as possible so that we can stay operational, but also get to that monetary budget that we have to have in order to buy a new location. But if
Yeah.
there's any of your viewers out there, Pastor Mike, that like have a location or like have a place that they're just sitting on that they want to donate or that they have no use for, like
Right.
that's even better, you know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Dr. Burton, this has been a fantastic and awesome conversation. Is there
Yeah.
anything else that we haven't talked about that you think would be good for people to know or to hear?
Yeah, I mean, I think like, look, whether it's with Wolf Trap Animal Rescue or it's with any organization that you're close to, every organization is different. So, while our organization, we very much embody and reflect a very more like modern, advanced. Like we over communicate. We're very young. We're very professional. We're very fun and kind of a younger demographic, more or less. Like, I mean, all my staff are between like 25 and 45 years of age. We're just all very young and vivacious, and we love it, and we bring a lot of fun to everything, but we bring a very more modern and millennial feel to it. Whereas, maybe that's not your style. Maybe you're more laid back. Maybe you're more old school. Maybe you like things to be a little bit slower paced and less communicative and less, maybe a little chill. And so like there's a different rescue organization for every person's personality, every person's comfort zone. So like I'm not saying Wolf Trap's the end all be all for every person. If it's not your cup of tea, that's totally fine. Go out there and help whatever organization that you fit in with and volunteer with. Get to know the people behind the organization, because I think that's really, really important. You can go to any adoption event or any intake and like, I'm there, or Dr. Ferguson is there, my whole staff are there, foster coordinators, adoption coordinators are soon. Like, people are going to be looking for my bots that are there, and I'm going to be like, sorry that John is not a real person, but get to volunteer with the organizations, just get involved, because whether it's Wolf Trap you want to support, or Homeward Trails, or Lost Dog, or a Forever Home, or Fancy Cats, or Four Paws, like, they're all great organizations and they all have a place. I don't view any of them as competitors, because we all have the same mission, and there are enough people to adopt that there's no competition. It's just what you're looking for and who is the organization that best fits with you. And that's really, at the end of the day, what it's all about. So just get out there and get involved and help and see what they need, and have fun with it.
Yeah.
Well, your time is incredibly valuable, and I just want to take a moment and thank you so much for sharing a little bit of it with us, to spread the word about all the great work that you're doing, all the animal lives that you're saving, and all the amazing opportunities for people around our neighborhood to find a new little furry friend with you. So
Yeah,
thank you
absolutely.
so much for everything you and your staff are doing. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for giving us a platform to talk about it. Like, we love, everybody that works at Wolf Trap. We love Wolf Trap. We're very passionate about it, and it's home for us. So
That's great. Thank you.
all right.